Well, Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Today is June the 13th, 2015. Sivan the 26th. Our Torah portion this week is number 37, Shalach Lecha. It means send for yourself. Shalach Lecha starts in Numbers 13, verse 1, and goes through chapter 15, verse 41. Our prophet's reading is from Joshua 2, and our New Covenant Brit Hadashah reading is from Matthew 5, Hebrews 3, and also Hebrews 11. In this week's Torah portion, we have a story in Numbers chapter 13 of the 12 spies that was sent into the land of Canaan. This is the land that the Lord was going to give to the Israelites. Today, here at the Olive Tree, we have with us two native East Tennesseans, which is where we're located at in the Olive Tree, that went to spy out the land of Israel. Scott and Teresa Johnson went to Israel in the year 2000 to volunteer at the ICEJ, which is the International Christian Embassy in Jerusalem. Scott and Teresa's love for the people in the land grew even more after a few years of volunteering in the land. In 2006, they opened their home on Erev Shabbat on Friday night when the Shabbat starts at sunset by inviting the lone soldiers who had no place to go for the Sabbath. Since that time, their home and ministry has been known as Miflaht, and he will tell you what Miflaht means. So without further ado, let us give a warm welcome to Scott Johnson. Scott, God bless you.
Thank you, brother.
May the Lord anoint you in your message and your word today.
Thank you. Shalom, Akim, Shalanu. It's peace, hello, greetings, brothers of ours. No, ladies, I'm not cutting you out or ignoring you on this. In the Hebrew, when there's one male presence, you speak in the masculine. And I'm glad of that because my Hebrew is really not so great. But I like to share that within our Bible that we read, and we sometimes get indifference about it, always talking about the male and the women are left out. Absolutely not. What it is, when in the Hebrew, when they were speaking, there was a male presence. So most things are addressed in the masculine form. It doesn't have anything to do with leaving women out of their place in God. Anyway, that being said, I guess you guys are used to a little things being different here. Today's going to be a little different. I'm not Rabbi Richie, and I didn't make up papers for y'all to pass out. I probably should have, but Robert does just an awesome job of teaching, and I feel honored that he would ask me when he called me a week ago. Actually, a little over that. He called me and asked me if I'd want to share part of the parashah and tie it in possibly to our ministry. When he first called me, we were in Texas, and I began to wonder. I thought, what could possibly be in there with the spies? Robert, I want to thank you for putting me there. I must confess, I haven't dug into it as deeply as I should have, but especially this morning early when I read through that again, about the third time, there was a lot of things that touched my heart, and I'm afraid we don't have enough time today to go through all that. The parashah in Hebrew, when they do this, like I said, they're on week 37, as Robert stated. They take a few verses every year on each biblical portion that they go through. And they only take a couple of verses, and they expound on that maybe an hour, maybe longer. And so the next year, the following year, they're right back, same time, the same parashah, the same book, it's the same ones, and they take a couple more verses. And they do this year after year after year. And eventually, those that are continuing to study in the Torah, they have gone through all of it. And the knowledge in that is really, it takes a lifetime. I don't know about y'all, but myself, it seems like I started later in life, and I feel like sometimes I have a lot of catching up to do. But God has been very gracious, and I think Larry's already gone, isn't he? He said days of Elijah gave him goosebumps. I call them Holy Ghost bumps, but I got it out of the heavenly, the grace falling like rain. That one gave me the Holy Ghost bumps this morning. And we are going to speak a little bit about the grace and mercy that God has in this Torah portion today. And in a sense, what he's had in Teresa's and I's life. Let's see if I can get my glasses on with these. I've known Robert for several years. And I told my wife, I said, well, Robert's up there saying all the things I'm going to say. I consider Robert more than a brother. We are kindred spirits, I believe. Him and I both think a lot alike, except for Robert is Rabbi Richie. He's truly a teacher. I am not. I'm not much of a speaker. I can speak, but Rabbi Richie, he's a teacher. And you guys are all very blessed to be here and to sit with Robert and hear him give you the Word of God. I feel honored again, Robert. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to try not to be repetitious. I suppose I will be somewhat. I've got two Bibles here. One is my wife's. It's the Complete Jewish Bible by Robert or David Stern. His brother Robert, I think, helped him, if I'm not mistaken. But I want to read the first, in chapter 13, the first 3 verses. I'm going to read it out of more of what it would have been written in the Hebrew. In Adam 9, where the Lord said to Moshe, send men on your behalf to spy out the land of Kenya, which I am giving to the people of Israel. From each ancestral tribe, send someone who is the leader in this tribe. Moshe dispatched them from the Panorama Desert, as Adonai had ordered. All of them were leading men among the people of Israel. And, of course, then it gives their names and the tribe they're from, and we're not going to go through all that. But what's important is in the parashah, and I believe it was Bob that was reading it up here in the Hebrew. I don't know if any realize how difficult this is. There's no breaks between the words or the letters, or there's no vowel points. And so words are really hard to speak and say. As Robert pointed out, they don't have the little headings in it. It just keeps going. And so, like he said, when they call out the parashah, what they're going to read, generally, it starts right in within the first sentence, which in the Hebrew it would say, "Send on your behalf," and in the very first verse, it starts right out on the second verse actually, "Send men on your behalf," and that's how, like Robert was pointing out, that is how they know where to go within the Torah. Again, it's very difficult, and then also within the words, that there's no separation and there's no vowel points. So it's very, it's not controversial, but Hebrew words have lots of meanings. And it can be translated a little bit differently, but words are very, very important in the Hebrew language. And I kind of really wanted to bring that out to you today. And they can have not really different meanings. They're very much the same, but they convey it in a different way. And between the Hebrew and then with the English, God is conveyed to us in a little bit of a different way. And I think in the years past, the Hebrew and our Hebrew roots weren't so important to us as Christians as these parts in the last days. As we sang, these are the days of Elijah. We're definitely in these. I don't know how much longer this will go on, but we're definitely in that part. And I believe that God is revealing to us that part of the Hebraic roots in us. And we will explain on that a little more later on. I'm going to get my glasses back on. Does anybody else have trouble reading without their glasses? I can't see it all. And then when I look out, I can't see with them. So there's a few things without getting into reading all of this parashah, but there's a few things I want to point out. As we said, Moses had sent the spies out on his land to spy out Israel, to see what was there. He also, when he named the names, there's another important fact I want to bring out in chapter 13, verse 16. These are the names of the men whom Moses sent to spy out the land. As if you had read in between there, it gave all of the names and the tribe they were from. And Moses called Hoshea, the son of Nun, Joshua. This is when his name was given name, born was Hoshea, and Moses, through the Lord, changed his name to Joshua. Joshua in the Hebrew, or Joshua in English, Joshua means God saves or God delivers. The name Joshua is also derived from Yeshua, which is also goes clear back into Jehovah. All of these words are in the name of God. They are all come out of that. They all come from that. And God saves. God saves us. And we're going to kind of touch on a little bit of Hebrew and what it might mean and what it might mean to us. So this is very important. This name, Joshua, that was changed, who actually, as we read through this part of the Torah portion, Joshua helped save them. If it wouldn't have been for him and Caleb, they would have all perished. So it's very important, and I wanted to point this out so that we might know that names and words in the Hebrew are very important. They have a lot of meaning. And one word, we could talk the whole hour on that. But we're not going to do that. We're going to move on. As we read on in chapter 13, it talks about when they all went and when they came back. And the horrendous things. They talked about all this wonderful stuff in Israel. And all the great things were there in Canaan that God had promised them was there. But they were frightened. And they were afraid. And as we get down to the end of chapter 13, they were talking about the giants that were there. In verse 17:25, where am I at? I lost my place. Did you ever do that before? I want to bring out in verse 27 and 29, down towards the end of the chapter 13. I need a bigger pair of glasses, I think. It says, we went to the land where you sent us. It truly flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. Nevertheless, the people who dwell in the land are strong. The cities are fortified and very large. Moreover, we saw the descendants of Anak there. Anak, who was Anak? They're Nephilim. They were the descendants of Nephilim. And this is something in English we don't get, but who are the Nephilim? Nephilim were angelic beings that were the time before Noah. One of the main reasons when the Lord sent the flood was because the Nephilim were breeding with the human women, which bred about huge amounts of evil, and God destroyed the earth for that. Of course, it talks about after that where the Nephilim had come back. And the descendants of Anak are there, and these were giants. They were very tall. I think in Genesis, it talks about them being men of renown. These were not good men. These were very, very evil men, but they were very powerful and very strong, and they also were very demonic. So this was what was in the land of Canaan. The Hebrew children, actually the fear that we don't get in the English, not because they were just so big and how well they were fighting, they knew what they were. They knew that this was the adversary or Satan or the devil. This was that part of it that had come to them. It frightened them. They didn't want to fight that. They actually refused to go in. As we get into chapter 14, they wouldn't go. The Lord had sent them, the Lord had given them, and then they decided no, we can't do this. The Lord got very, very angry with them. And actually, when they talked about the things they wanted to do going back to Egypt, they cursed their own children. They cursed their own brothers and sisters. Is what they did, what came out of their mouth. So what we speak, is something you want to bring out of this, is very, very important, what we say to one another, what we say about our children. They are powerful, powerful words. And the Lord listens to those. Those of us that believe in Him, He hears us all the time. Everything we say. There's nothing in secret that we can do that He doesn't hear. And so He's listening to us all the time. We have to be very, very careful with our words. So they actually even, like I said, cursed their own children. They didn't want to go. They were frightened. And the Lord got very, very angry. All of the things that they had seen the Lord do, all the miracles that He had done, all the impossibilities that went on, and now they doubted Him. It was called rebellion. God was angry at them because they rebelled. Rebellion and rebelliousness is still going on today. It goes on within the secular world. It goes on in the Christian community. It goes on within the Jewish community. We're rebellious people also. But the Lord relates this very closely, and I don't have the scripture, but it's in 1 Samuel. You can look it up and read it. But it talks about rebelliousness being witchcraft, sorcery. That's what it's related to. That part is very demonic. That part of it that we rebel against God doesn't come from God. It comes from the father of lies. It comes from what I say, Satan or Satan, I call him the adversary. It comes from the adversary. And that angers God, especially after He's done miracles and wonders in our life, to doubt Him. Our faith is fallen. So they were very angry. Caleb and Joshua they said, no, we need to charge right in there and go for it. Let's do this. And the Lord was so angry, He was going to kill them all, except for Moses, his family, Joshua, and Caleb. He would have made a new nation from them. And again, Moses, I think it says in here more than 10 times, he intervened for them, just like our Savior, Yeshua, intercedes for us to the Father. Father, don't do this to them. Show them your grace and your mercy. Moses asked for that. He did sit down some conditions to the Lord about what would happen, and basically it's what the people spoke out was going to happen to them, all except for the children. God was going to bless the children. Anyone, I believe, under 21, 22, anyone under that was going to live and go to the promised land. All the others, no, none of them were going to go. They were all going to die in a wilderness. Take 40 years. A day for every year they sinned. Aren't we glad that God doesn't tell us that today? That we have to, for every day that we sin, we're going to spend 40 years? I would never make it. But Yeshua, that part of salvation, God's delivering us through His Son, has brought us grace and mercy. And He is graceful, and His mercy, it just endures forever, and it's never ending. I think that's awesome. I don't know about you, but every day I have to ask for that. Father, forgive me. Forgive me for what's in my head, my thoughts that come up that I don't want anything to do with, but they're there. And He knows those. He hears those as we were speaking. So the other 10 spies, I don't know if you caught it, but He immediately killed them. After they got done complaining and after God had set His judgment down, they died of a plague, the 10 of them. He wiped them out. That's how serious God is with our rebellion, our failure to believe and follow Him. Once we start and we start building our lives in the kingdom of God, we are more responsible for the things that we do. And then when we lack that faith to trust God and walk out into the impossible, there's a price to pay for it. Is there a price to pay for it today? Absolutely. There is today also. Yes, we have grace and mercy. We're not going to spend 40 years for that, for each little thing. But there is repercussion for that. And God will use it to guide us back and to take us where we're at. What does this have to do to the ministry that my wife and I are in? Well, This has been a long-awaited prayer. Teresa and I have never really wavered from it. 4 years ago, we were here together. We've not been back to the United States in 4 years together. Why? The Miflaht, the home for the lone soldier, has grown to the extent of someone has to be there all the time. We have people there, soldiers there, 24/7. And you cannot leave a house full of teenagers, which we can have anywhere through the week, anywhere from 5 to 10. Leave there, I don't know what would happen when we got back. If we still have the house be standing. But we have been praying for 4 years for the Lord to send us a couple to come and relieve us, to be there while we came back to the States. We want someone to come for 3 months. And it's very, very difficult to get someone to do that. But faithfully, he provided. And the people that came there, Benny and Cheryl Shadwick, they're from Arkansas. They are also much like what's in here. They're going to go to this land. And they could have, we've had many in the past say no. Yes, we want to do that, until you get to talking to them what's going on and what you have to do there. And they said, we're just not capable. And no fault against them. They probably were not. But this couple said yes, and they also came. And 2 weeks after we were back in the States, we tried to explain to him that this is not easy, it's not a vacation, it's not, oh, great and glorious Jerusalem. I mean, it is a great and glorious place, but the powers and principalities there will wear you down if you're not aware of them. How many of you believe in spiritual warfare? I'm telling you, it's real. It's very real. And we don't fight the flesh and blood, but it's the powers and principalities. In Jerusalem, I'd say it's the heaviest spot in the world for that. Why? Because we believe that Yeshua is going to reign there in the future. We're all going to live in Jerusalem in a new kingdom. And it will be physically in Jerusalem. And Yeshua will be physically a king sitting on the throne in Jerusalem. And so the adversary, the enemy, wants to do everything he can now to destroy that. And his power is definitely there and very strong. Anyway, the Shadwicks, they called me and they were having a few problems, nothing major. But I told them, I said, look, we explained this before. God didn't call those stiff-necked people for nothing. And I said, now you have got stiff-necked teenagers that are even more problems that you could. But they have learned to move on with this, and they're doing very well. But I would like to ask you to pray for them, to keep them in your prayers. I want to move on through this. Even after God had sent the sentence down, I'll let y'all read that for yourself, what he was going to do and how this came about. The next day, they came up to Moses and they said, let's go to the tent here. Hey, we're ready to go. We're up to the mountain. Let's go now. And it was like, it was too late. And Moses told them, why are you trying to tempt God again? So the second time, in less than 24 hours, they're trying to tempt God to say, okay, now we'll do it, but it was too late. And what I want to ask you today, how many times has God called you or told you to do something, and I'll do it later, or not right now, or I'm afraid I'm not hearing him right? What if it's not God? We can't continue to live this way. When we hear God speaking to us, we must act on it right away, no matter what it is. But what he's wanting you to do is do something in the impossible. You can't be capable of it, only he is. These miracles, signs, and wonders must follow us now, today. Has to be going on. Because in this fallen world, which is following to the darkness more and more every day, his Holy Spirit, the Spirit of God, is stronger. And it'll always be larger, bigger, stronger than the darkness. Always. And we must walk in that along with this darkness. The Word says we're in this world, but we don't have to be part of it. And we have to be that part, that glory. And even in this chapter, it talks about God said, my glory will cover the earth. God himself prophesying into the future. We are his glory. And we must walk in that glory, and we must do the impossible. About to lose my keeper. And we must walk in that, and we must do that. We get into chapter 15. course, chapter 15 talks about a lot of the sacrifices and the things that we need to do. I want to just very quickly talk about a lot of the sacrifices that happened in the temple and at the tent of meetings that they did. I think many of us, we don't understand, or I didn't, in my Christian walk within Christianity when I was coming through. It seemed like weird things that we're supposed to do. That why? But what 90% right at that, these sacrifices, what were they? These were things that you and your family, or you and your friends, a group of you, you brought an animal, whether it be a lamb, a goat, pigeons, that'd been for light lunch, or maybe even a whole bull, which was a lot of meat. And you brought them, and the priest killed them, they slaughtered them, they blessed them, they sanctified it, they took parts of it out. That was for their payment of it, how God took care of them. The rest of it went back to you, already cooked. You took it back with all of your family or your friends, and you continued to eat, drink, and be merry and celebrate with God. Korban means drawing closer to God. So what they were doing was exactly feasting with God Himself. And they were praising the Lord and thanking Him for what they'd given Him. These were appointed times, which we'll get into if we get to 23 in a minute. Appointed times that God had given us. Special times in our lives to be able to be with Him. Why? He knows we're too busy. He knows that we're going to forget to praise Him, to worship Him, to spend time with Him. The whole thing of sending Yeshua over here was so that we could get closer to God. He wanted that intimate relationship with each and every one of us. Which brings us to the children of Israel. I want to get into the last chapter of 15, verses 30 and 31. Well, I want to do 41. I'm sorry. Oh, well, let me back up. I was right the first time. 30 and 31. Of course, we've been talking about the sin and things we do. In Numbers, chapter 15, verse 30. But the person who does anything presumptuously, whether he is a native born or a stranger, that one brings reproach on the Lord, and he shall be cut off from among his people. Do we realize what that says? Let's read that one more time. This is a really very heavy statement. But the person who does anything presumptuously, whether, in other words, he sins intentionally or knows that sin, says I can get away with it, whether he is a native born, whether he is a Jewish person or a stranger, that one brings reproach on the Lord, he shall be cut off from among his people. That's a pretty heavy statement right there. We're talking about the sins. We're talking about the rebelliousness that we've just read in the last three chapters. That's, I encourage you all to read that and meditate on that and ask God to give you revelation of what that says and what that means. And as we move on in 15, 37, and 41, again the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel. Tell them to make tassels on the corners of their garments throughout their generations, and to put a blue thread on the tassels of the corners. And you shall have the tassel that you may look upon and remember all the commandments of the Lord and to do them, and that you may not follow the harlotry or some version of the prostitution to which your own heart and your own eyes are inclined, and that you remember and do all my commandments and be holy for your God, or holy to your God. The tzitzits, the tassels, were the significance on those is to remember God. To remember God. To remember His commandments. The commandments, many of them that we are still supposed to follow. Does that mean that we have to wear these? No. Is our heart circumcised? Are we at the time now where the Lord has said, no longer will you need the pastor, the preacher, the rabbis. I'll put it in your heart. I'll put it in your heart. I'll circumcise your heart. And when he does that, these laws and things should be in here, and we should be reminded of them. But do we do that? Here again, the Lord already knows us as humans. I mean, he made us. He knew every single one of us before the foundations of the earth. These things help us. The ZCs help us. If we remember, we're looking at these because of the commandments of God. If God's in control, I'm not going to rebel against him. He's there. I will remember his commandments. Those should be worn, and you should. If you don't wear them, are you wrong? I'm not saying that. Absolutely not. And I'm not saying, too, that now we don't need the rabbis, we don't need the preachers, because we do. We need that fellowship. We need some of the help from Rabbi Richie here that speaks up here and helps strengthen you, encourage you in these things. But that doesn't give us the right to go home and set this book up on a shelf and say, I'll get it next Sunday or Saturday or Wednesday, whenever it may be. We should be in it all the time. This is how we know the Lord. This is how we know him. This is what we know, especially in the Torah, the many things that we are and aren't supposed to do. Their morals are in this thing. Everything we do, our life is in here. It's a directory. It guides us to be moral, godly people. Our righteousness comes from Yeshua, who gives us, it abounds in us. We can't be more righteous than that. So we can't do anything for that. But we can act out and show and let that love and light of Christ shine through us. Which brings us back to Teresa and I in Israel. What do we do there? Of course, Robert said we were like spies that went over there. Maybe in the beginning, because we were very unsure. Greenhorns. We all know what greenhorns means here. We were greenhorns where we were at. Very naive. And the Lord started opening our eyes and show us many, many things. Many times I've said this, we feel like the binoculars we had in the United States were switched around backwards. We were looking through the big end down to the little one. Very narrow. Very narrow-minded. Very uneducated really in the Word of God. I mean, we knew the basis of what Christianity taught us, but there was more. You know, and God had told us, there's much, much more I'm going to show you. And I must say, he's kept his word every day. Every day we learn something new, every day and every day. But when we got to Israel, it's like God turned them back around so we could see and opened our eyes. And he started preparing us. He prepared us before, we call them our BC years, before Christ, before the Messiah, the Mashiach came in our life. He was preparing us when we were secular, didn't believe, of what he was going to have us do in Israel. And when he called us there to do it, we were already prepared. We didn't even know it. We were doing things. We had no clue what we were doing, but as we started into it, we realized God was there. He had prepared us our whole lives to do. We know without a doubt we are in the will of God, in the hand of God of what we're doing. It's what he's called us to do. And he has blessed it. It's not always easy. Sometimes it's very difficult. I hope you're saying hi to me instead of 5 minutes. What a helpmate I have. I took her Bible this morning. I said, I got to have yours up there too. There's a couple scriptures I want to read out of them. She goes, what am I going to do? Well, most of this she's heard, but actually not yet. Today was, thank you, Robert. She's heard new stuff. We've been touring for 6 weeks, something like that. I don't even know where all we've been. 40 different places. And she was hearing the same rhetoric over and over and over every place we went. She goes, can't you do something, say something different? And I went, no. I said, people are 6,000 miles, 200, 500 away. They don't know what we said. So you keep the same one. She knew it by heart. But anyway, I want to come out of Numbers, and there's something very important I think I need to share with you. In Ephesians chapter 2, I love this. We're in Ephesians chapter 2, and I'm going to read 11 and 13. I think if any of you have been on our website, Teresa and I have said we've been there, like I said, 15 years. We've been acclimated a lot into Hebrew society, into the culture, even the way they act, their behavior, which is much different than us here. I would venture to say they're ruder over there than what we are. Is that a fair assessment, dear? They like to argue, but arguing there doesn't mean the same as we mean argue here. Arguing is a way of learning, and they do this all night long, some of them. And so my wife and I have really picked up on that part. I want to read you Ephesians chapter 2, starting at verse 11. Therefore remember that you once Gentiles in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision by what is called the circumcision, made in the flesh by hands. In other words, the circumcised called us uncircumcised, which was not a good thing. Because back when we were in the Bamidbar is Numbers. It's in the desert. I wanted to share that with you because I probably call that and we'll all be confused. But it was in the desert. When we read that, during this time, they were to stay away from the uncircumcised, because the uncircumcised were not into the cut covenant, which is very important. The cut covenants of God through Abraham and to the rest. If you remember when he cut the bulls and he came through it, it was a cut covenant. And the circumcision in Judaism was not just to prove who you were, but it was a cut covenant. It was their way of verifying the covenant they have with God and saying, yes, we will do this. If you recall, Moses himself, if it wasn't for his wife Zipporah, God was going to kill him. Why? He didn't circumcise his son. He forgot. God was going to kill probably one of the greatest prophets, one of the greatest men of God that we know of today, was going to kill him because he forgot. That should say volumes to us. We can't forget. There's so many things we need to continue doing. My wife got the finger going, speed it up. Anyway, in that time, we were without Mashiach, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel. This is very important. A lot of scriptures might say the family of Israel instead of the commonwealth. The family of Israel. That's in the Hebrew, that is what it says. And we're strangers from the covenant of the promise, having no hope without God in the world. But now in Mashiach Yeshua, we who were once far off, have been brought near by the blood of the Messiah. For he himself is our peace, who has made both one, and has broken down the middle wall of separation, having abolished in his flesh the enmity, that is the law, the commandments contained in ordinances, as to create in himself one new man from the two, thus making peace. A lot of, in Christianity, a lot of them use this verse right in here to say that we don't have to follow those commandments anymore. That's not true. We're going to go back to what happened even in Numbers that we read. It was some of the laws Yeshua did away with. This law of being separated from the non-Jews, he said, no more of this. I'm going to break this down. But we have to be circumcised in the heart. That brings us into the cut covenant by our heart being circumcised. It doesn't mean that all of the Torah and the rules and the laws and regulations of Torah that we have to forget them. No. There's some of them we don't. I can't tell you which ones to do and not to do. And really no man can. Only God can. Only through his Son. He will reveal to you what you do need to do and what you do not need to be doing. And the rest of it, man and myself and Rabbi Richie, we can direct you in these things. But many, many times I've noticed and I've heard from Robert. I call him Robert when I'm looking at him as my friend, my brother, Rabbi Richie as the teacher. But I've never heard him tell you have to do this and you have to be this way. He always explains that this is an option open. I love that. He doesn't force anything on you. And a man of God will not. He'll just direct you. Look for these things yourself. And again, look for these in yourself, what God has called us to do and not to do. I want to go back to the covenant, or to the verse 12. where it talks about us being estranged from the family of Israel. Now what this means in the Hebrew is Mishpacha Yisrael. And the word Yisrael, you can't translate this in the English because the Greek and the Latin won't tell you this. But Yisrael in Hebrew generally doesn't mean people or land. And we look at it like that because it's all we know. But if you will ask any Torah scholar or someone in Hebrew, they won't tell you land or people. It can, but not very rarely. Rarely it means that. What it means, there's many different variations of the word Yisrael. You can bring that thing apart and where you put the vowels and where you don't put a vowel and which part you pull out and which the root you use. You get a lot of things out of it. There's probably 50 different meanings to it. The one I like the best, it comes from a Chabad, and it is whom he fights for. Whom God fights for. That's Yisrael. And if we even go back into Numbers where we just read the parashah, and every time if we think of that, and we think of the people or the children of God, it's Mishpacha, whom he fights for, the family whom he fights for. We're in that family. The family is the kingdom of God, which we are brought into by the blood of Mashiach, which we are grafted into. We are a part of that. We're neither a Jew nor a Gentile in that. We're a new man. They'll wait, honey. This is the, we really got to quit now. This is that one new man that we're there. And he has made us into something very special, into his family. And so anytime, especially in the Tanakh, or as Robert said, the Torah, the whole thing, when you see that word, Israel, think Yisrael. If it's got people or a family with it, think that's me. God's speaking to me. I'm in that family. I'm in the family he fights for. He will fight for us. The children, the Hebrew children, when they were starting to go in with Joshua, when they spied out the land, they forgot whom he fights for. They forgot he was going to fight for them. And that really aggravated God. It was rebellious to him because they didn't believe he would fight for them. I want to share one more thing right quickly in this, and it's in Leviticus 23. Of course, a lot of us have headings in our Bible. I'm going to get at this right quick. You can Leviticus 23, right off the bat, first verse. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the Mishpacha of Yisrael. Speak to the children of Israel." Hey, that's us. We just said we're children of whom he fights for. Speak to the children whom I fight for, and say to them, the feast of the Lord, which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations. These are my feast. A lot of people ask us, why are you doing the Jewish thing? Why are you doing this? Why? It's not a Jewish thing. It's a God thing. We have found out it's God thing. Where's Larry? I'm getting Holy Ghost bumps all over. These are God's. They are for us, for the children that he fights for. They're for all of us. And these feasts, I might go, I'm not going to go through all of them, the Sabbath, Passover, on and on. I love Sukkot, by the way. If anybody wants to come to Israel, come during Sukkot. It's an awesome time, one of the best times. It's just awesome. But I don't have it down. I don't know why I didn't write it down. But there's a Hebrew word in here that says appointed times. These, in chapter 23, these appointed times. Do you want to know about the end times? The answer is in Leviticus 23, goes along with the book of Revelation, goes along with the book of Daniel. Those three books. You read those, you pray, you ask God to reveal to you, and Leviticus 23 is the calendar. It is the calendar of events that are going to happen. It's not going to give you the day or the hour. It will give you the season. Yeshua, Jesus himself said in Matthew, "Fools, you're asking me this? You can see when a cloud in the east comes the size of your fist, and it's going to rain. You're going to have huge thunderstorms. said, know the seasons. Where are the seasons? The appointed times, where are they? Leviticus 23. That's are those. And I'm not going to go there with you on that. You have to let the Lord show you. There's awesome things there that are going to happen. I've just about used up my time and didn't say much about Miflaht. Robert only said about half of what I wanted to out of the parashah. Go on. Nobody's in a hurry to leave? You know, that's what I love about this congregation. I've been here several times, and you guys aren't in a hurry to leave. I'm telling you, we've been in some places, and I've seen some of the elders in the back room. They're looking at this, and they're looking at me, and they're looking at this. My wife's going, we're hungry. You guys are hungry for the Word of God. You're hungry to hear what the Lord is doing. You're hungry to hear what the Father is doing in Israel. What his two, I don't know if we were spies, but we did go and look it out, checked it out, and we were very, I think I told you before, very greenhorns of what we were doing. And we didn't know exactly what we were going to do. We just knew that he said go, much like Abraham. We went. We knew where we were going, but we had no idea what we were going to do. 2005, most of you have heard the story about the soldier, correct? Or somebody here hadn't heard it, how we got started? I'll say it again. I'll make it quick. In 2005, we'd already been in Israel 5 years, of course, through the embassy, and we're beginning to be, like I said, more acclimated into their society and customs. And so we were doing Shabbat meals in our home. And I think Robert mentioned, when we first went, we moved around from place to place. At the embassy, they move you. You usually don't stay in the same house 6 months and you're moving. And I know very well because I was head of the logistics, and I moved all those 80-some people twice a year. So that was, thank God I don't do that today. I don't know if I could. We were moving around a lot, and around 2003, am I telling this right? 3? We are in the house we're at now. And we've been in the same house almost 12 years, which is unheard of in Israel. So God has given us much favor. He has planted us into a place. We have like I said, the home. We're very much established. We're established within the government, within the army, and within the people around us. But in 2005, I met this young man who was walking into the park. And I used to have a little game back then. I don't know if you're aware. I'm sure you're all aware. But God is bringing his children home from all 4 corners of the earth. We have people in our home from Singapore, India. We have had Chinese. We don't have any actually with us now, but we have had Chinese. We have them from all parts of the former Soviet Union. Many of the former Soviet Union are there. We have them from South America, Argentina, Brazil. We have them from Chile, Mexico. We have them from Africa, many, many, many places. So anyway, he is bringing them home from the 4 corners of the earth. So I used to have this little game. I tried to guess by their looks, their actions, what country they were from, what nationality were they. And I was hoping this young man was an American, because my Hebrew then, I couldn't do any more than say shalom. That would have been it. And so I went up and asked him, I said, where are you, why aren't you home? Why aren't you home with your family for Shabbat? And here's this young man. He's got his rifle. He's got his backpack. He's got a sleeping bag. And he's carrying, this little bag with him. And I said, why aren't you going home? He said, I don't have a family to go to. And I said, well, where are you going to have your Shabbat dinner? And he said, well, I'm out here in the park. And I said, well, what are you going to eat? And he said, I have pita and hummus, which pita and hummus is very good. But for a Shabbat meal, no. I said, where are you going to sleep? He said, I'm going to sleep in the park. I was appalled. I thought, wow, here is a young man, he was about maybe 19, maybe not quite, who was ready to give his life for Eretz Israel, for his country. He was ready to give his life because he's in the army, and you must be ready to do that if the call comes for that. And so I said to him, I said, well, why don't you come home with us? I said to her, come home with me. And my wife, at that time I was quite a bit heavier. I said, and I was touching here, my wife is a very good cook, as you can see. And we do the Shabbat dinner, and you're more than welcome to come. I said, you know, we have some friends there, and we do the Kiddush and the Kiddush, and just like any Jewish home would. And he said, will there be any Jews there? And I said, no Jews. And he looked at me with a very disgusting look. And he said, you're one of those Christians, aren't you? And I went, well, yes and no. We believe in Yeshua, yes. We don't follow most of the theology in Western Christianity. And where we're at, and where we stand with it, I have no idea, but we're not that. So he said, I don't think I'll go. And I said, okay, you can have the cold pita and hummus, and you can sleep out here on this cold ground if you want, damp ground. Or you can come with me and have a hot meal and a warm bed. And I said, but whatever it is, I'm leaving. I can't be late. My wife will be angry if I'm late for Shabbat. And so he said, wait a minute, I'll go and have dinner with you. But after that, I'm leaving. I said, okay. So we came to the house for dinner. And we had a wonderful time. I think he was amazed. We were singing Shalom Aleichem and some of the other songs and things that he would have been doing at home in his Jewish family. And then we did the Kiddush in the Hebrew, just like some of that we're saying here. And he was amazed at what was going on. Why? He was scratching his head. Why are these uncircumcised, in his mind, why are they doing all these things? And so he had the dinner, and after dinner I said, well, I said, Jonathan, I'll take you anywhere you want to go in Israel. I had a vehicle then. I'll take you anywhere you want to go. Just tell me where, and I'll take you. And he said, but I thought you said I could stay all night. Spend the night here. And I said, well, I did, but you told me you didn't want to stay. And he said, well, I've changed my mind. Everything's okay now. So I said, okay, I'll take you upstairs and show you where your room is. We had, am I telling this right, 3 extra bedrooms at that time? Well, actually, we had 2, and one that we called Miflaht, the bomb shelter. We turned it into a bedroom, too. So anyway, I took him up, and I showed him the room. He said, you know, he thanked me. So the next day, Saturday, we got up, and we had our noon meal, and he was amazed that we did that, and some of the things that we did. Like, again, just like we would have done, only it wasn't religiously the way we did it. It was fun. And he enjoyed it. And I might add, a lot of them that come out of an Orthodox home, which he did not, but many of them hate Shabbat. They hate the holidays because they're drudgery. There's so many rules and regulations. They don't have fun. They don't enjoy the Lord. But at Miflaht, when we have the celebration, they called Yeshua a glutton and a drunkard. You know, we don't drink and get drunk, don't get me wrong, I'm not, but we celebrate, we party with the Lord, we have a good time at it. And these kids love it. They can finally get back into celebrating and worshiping God in a way that no one's going to slap them in the back of the head. And so anyway, Saturday night, he gets back on and goes to base. Before he left, I said, let me write my name down here and my phone number. If you're ever off again on a weekend, give me a call, and you're more than welcome to stay here. He said, I really appreciate it. I had a great time, but I won't be back anymore to bother you. He said, you know, it was good. So he leaves. Wednesday night, he calls us. And he said, Scott, were you serious about me coming and spending the whole weekend? Not one night. He said, I get off Thursday, and I don't go back until Sunday morning. Will that be okay? And I said, well, we would love to have you come. And he said, well, I really want to, but I got a problem. And I said, if there's anything I can do in my power to help you out, I'll do it. And he said, I have a friend that has nowhere to go. And that's really how the Lord started this thing back in 2005. If my wife and I knew, even though we knew we were supposed to be doing what we were supposed to do, if we knew what he had in store for us, and 10 years later, last year we served 5,587 meals to the lone soldiers in Israel. We would have ran, wouldn't we? We've already raised our children. You know, we've raised our children. We got grandchildren. We got 14 grandchildren. 5 children. Yet we're over, and the Lord has brought us more and more and more. We have affected the lives. The Lord has used us to touch over 1,000 lives of these young soldiers over the last 10 years. I know that's not a lot, but Yeshua only had 12. He started with 12 and turned the world upside down. Now, we don't proselytize. Many of you know, but if you don't know, we don't proselytize. In other words, we don't try to witness in the gospel from the New Testament. We try to live and show them the life of the Mashiach. We try to let that part, the light and the love of Messiah, shine out to them and touch them. And Robert, I'm glad you're going to be speaking about love, because love is where it's at. Love is the greatest commandment of all, is love. It's the love that he gave the Hebrew children back when they went to the land and didn't come out. It was the love he had for their children, the grandchildren, the generations after that. It's his love for us that touches and changes our heart. Some of you that were here heard the story of Oved, I believe. It was the love that touched that young man's heart. And it wasn't you and I, it was through you and I, but it was Yeshua. It was that part of the Messiah that lives in us, that part of the Spirit that's in us, that goes out and radiates out and touches everything we do. It's kind of simple. You might say, Yeshua, Jesus says, I want to go over here. And so you take him over here. I want to go over here. In that sense, very simply put, but he lives in us. The Spirit lives in us. The Spirit of God lives in us. He's making this dwelling place within us where he lives and he thrives. And that's what he wants from us, to take him and do wherever we go. That's the glory of God. It's the glory of God on this planet. And it's all over the planet, and it's growing stronger, I must admit. It's growing leaps and bounds. It truly is. And this is what draws people to Christ, and our love for one another that we have towards each other. And walking in the miracles. I think we talked about that earlier. We must be walking in the miracles. We must be walking in the impossible. We must have faith. God will send us to fight the giants. God will send us to fight the Nephilim. He will send us to fight the demonic beings that are on this planet. We fight what's unseen, not the seen. Because usually we don't see it, but it's there. And it's there in physically that we can't see. But our spirit knows it, and the Lord knows it, and he will use that for us to do that impossible thing. Many things trying to get in your job, trying to get a position or more money. It's the opposition from the adversary, so it won't happen. But don't believe in that. If God's going to give it to you, it'll be there. Nothing can stop it. No one will stop it. Is there something I ought to share, dear? Well, I probably ought to wind this up. I know everybody's probably hungry. But I just want to say how grateful again to Rabbi Richie for having me here, and my brother Robert for having me here to do this, and all of you. And to be here with you, we feel very comfortable here. We like coming here. And this church or this congregation has, I might add, has helped us and supported us financially and with prayers for almost ever since you started, hadn't it, Robert? And we appreciate that. God appreciates that. And I just want you to know, it goes and buys hamburgers, no cheeseburgers in Israel, but hamburgers and the Hebrew national hot dogs for them. We have more than that, lots of chicken, but it goes to help these young men and women, and you are directly involved in that by helping do that. It very directly, those finances keep it going. Like I said, almost 6,000 meals you can imagine. And if some of you have been to our dinners there, I think a few of you have, we have huge meals on Shabbat and in the holidays. They're not little. We celebrate in the Lord. Anyway, God bless you all. Help me out, Robert.
Amen.
God bless you for what you do, and just may God just prosper you.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you. Everybody give Scott a hand. Scott, if you'll just stay right there where you're at. Let's pray. Lord, I just thank you for Scott I thank you for Teresa. I thank you for Miflaht. I thank you, Lord, for all that you are doing with them. Lord, I ask that you bless them, favor them, and prosper them. Bless their ministry, Lord. Continue to provide for them. Lord, if you want them to have a larger place, then give it to them. Lord, if you want them to serve more people, then allow that, Lord. On your timing, Abba, may your perfect will be done. In Yeshua's name we pray. Amen. Now, I want Scott to stay up here with me, and if everyone will please rise, we want to bless you guys with the Aaronic benediction. We're all a kingdom of priests. We all have authority to do this. So if you would, just get with your family, and let's bless one another with these words this morning. Yavarekeka Adonai vayishmereka Ya'er Adonai pe'nave Lecha vikuneka Yisa Adonai pe'nave Lecha vayasim lecha shalom. Shalom b'shem Yeshua HaMashiach, our Sar Shalom, our Prince of Peace. Amen. Now may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you his peace. Peace in the name of Yeshua, our Messiah, our Sar Shalom, our Prince of Peace. Amen and amen. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
God bless.